Usually, when we think about making a choice, just a simple everyday decision,
Yeah.
there's this unspoken expectation of safety.
Right, like a built-in safety net.
Exactly. I want you to picture walking down a long, dimly lit hallway.
Yeah.
You reach a fork, and you decide, okay, I'm going to turn left.
Sure.
The moment you step to the left, the right path just seamlessly vanishes behind you. Like the drywall just seals up, the choice is made, it's clean, and you just keep walking forward.
It feels manageable, right? I mean, the human brain absolutely craves that kind of linearity. We fundamentally need to believe that our reality is singular.
Yeah.
That the unchosen option simply ceases to exist the exact second we decide against it. It is honestly an incredible mechanism of cognitive preservation.
But then you step into the philosophical landscape of infinite choice.
Right.
You dive into the concept of branching realities, and suddenly, that simple hallway just collapses around you.
It's completely gone.
You look back, and the right path didn't vanish. It's still there,
Yeah.
and another version of you is walking down it.
Yeah. Which is a lot to process.
It is. Suddenly, we are looking at an existential landscape that is, honestly, absolutely terrifying.
It induces this kind of profound spiritual vertigo. Because if the unchosen path doesn't disappear, if it's still out there, then the weight of every single micro decision you make just multiplies to infinity.
That vertigo is exactly what we are unpacking today. We have a really fascinating stack of sources for this deep dive, and they all circle this exact crisis.
It's a great collection of texts today.
Yeah, so I was reading through this incredibly dense philosophical text we pulled called Desert of Choices.
Oh yeah, heavy stuff.
Super heavy. It maps out the psychological horror of realizing our lives are a multiverse of branching decisions. But what really blew my mind is how perfectly it aligns with this Reddit post that surfaced recently.
Right, the leak.
Yes. It leaked original, completely unused script details from the movie The Matrix Reloaded.
I mean, the parallels between those two sources are just staggering.
They really are.
And to ground both of them, we're also looking at Søren Kierkegaard's 1844 masterwork, The Concept of Anxiety, alongside a very brief but incredibly heavy verse from the Book of Ecclesiastes regarding the unpredictable nature of fate.
So we are going to use these sources to walk out of what the Desert of Choices calls the comfortable illusion of Egypt.
Right.
And we're going to step out into the chaotic, infinite landscape of the desert. Our mission today is to figure out why freedom causes us so much paralyzing anxiety.
Yeah, that's the core of it.
And, how we can actually find meaning when every possible choice theoretically exists out there somewhere.
Right.
So let's start with that comfortable lie. Let's start in Egypt.
Well, it's crucial to understand right up front that when the text says Egypt, it isn't talking about a geographical location.
Right, no pyramids.
Exactly, or ancient history. It is diagnosing a psychological condition. Egypt is the state of absolute certainty.
It's that hallway I described.
It is the hallway. In Egypt, you believe that when you make a choice, it's a harmless, linear act. You assume that choosing a career or choosing a partner or even just what to eat for breakfast permanently deletes the alternatives.
Like the unchosen path vanishes into the ether.
Yes. You think the world closes securely behind you with every single step?
Which feels so safe. You make a choice, and that choice defines the one and only reality.
It's very cozy.
But this text argues that Egypt was always a lie. Its stability is sustained purely by our own ignorance.
We are just completely asleep to the reality of the situation.
Right. And to leave Egypt is to accept multiplicity. It means realizing that every version of you exists somewhere.
The you who stayed.
Yeah, the you who left, the you who hesitated. But I'm struggling with how that realization actually happens. Like, what does the crack in the illusion look like?
This is where those leaked script details from The Matrix Reloaded become such a brilliant lens.
Oh, I love this part.
The Wachowskis were wrestling with this exact concept of comfortable illusions versus overwhelming reality. Think about the Chinatown scene from the script notes. Neo is heading to the tea house, and he walks past this row of street merchants. But the script is very specific here. It doesn't just call them merchants.
Right.
It describes them as peddling the ultimate simulacra.
Which means they are selling these spiritual and historic symbols, things that were once incredibly powerful, profound images that have now been reduced to like cheap plastic laminated bric-a-brac.
Exactly, just tourist junk. But think about the psychology behind that plastic bric-a-brac. Why do people buy it?
To feel connected to something without having to actually do the work.
Exactly. The connection between the psychological state of Egypt and those simulacra is that both represent a commodified, violently simplified version of reality.
Wow.
They are designed entirely to soothe us.
Because engaging with the real, raw spiritual power of the universe is just too much. It's too heavy.
It would break us.
So we buy a laminated card instead. We literally buy into the illusion.
We cling to these plastic symbols and these rigid, linear routines because the alternative is simply too much for the nervous system to bear. The alternative is accepting that reality is a branching, uncontrollable, infinitely dividing structure. It's massive cognitive overload. We need the simulacra to just, function.
It's so interesting to look at Neo in this context. Because in the script notes, there's this specific detail where the Oracle says to Neo, because you're the one.
Right.
And the script explicitly states that Neo's getting tired of hearing this.
Yeah, he's just over it.
He is exhausted by the concept of being the one.
He's also described as being completely dumbfounded by what the script calls oracles.
Her riddles?
Yeah. She tells him, you didn't come here to make a choice. You came here to understand why you made it. And he's just perplexed.
Because even a literal messiah figures out eventually that destiny isn't a straight, comforting line.
Exactly.
He's starting to see the branching. He's waking up from the Egypt of being a singular, chosen hero on a singular, guaranteed path.
It's a perfect visual for the disorientation of leaving Egypt. The architecture of his reality is getting vastly more complicated.
It makes me think of a massive video game skill tree.
Well, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so when you're in Egypt, you think you're just leveling up on a straight single track. You put a point into, stealth, and you're a stealth character now.
Right, the game just moves forward.
Exactly. But leaving Egypt is realizing that the moment you click stealth, you permanently lock yourself out of experiencing the version of your character that chose magic. And the terrifying part, the real existential horror here, is realizing that the magic character doesn't just disappear.
They keep going.
Yes, they continue living, leveling up, and fighting in a parallel server that you can never, ever log into.
That is exactly the architecture the Desert of Choices is describing. The unchosen path lingers. It waits.
Ugh, that's so haunting.
You aren't deciding which path will exist. You are merely deciding which path you will consciously experience.
Yeah.
The universe sustains all of them.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I'm going to push back here.
Sure.
If Neo is exhausted by being the one, and if realizing our choices branch into infinity just brings us mass disorientation and anxiety, why shouldn't you and I just stay in Egypt?
It's a fair question.
Right. Why shouldn't we just buy the plastic simulacra in Chinatown, put it on our shelf, and enjoy the illusion of a simple linear life? Ignorance is bliss, isn't it?
It's a completely rational defense mechanism. Why willingly walk into the desert?
Exactly.
But the text argues that this isn't a door you can just close. Once the crack happens, once you actually notice the branching, once you feel the weight of the multiverse, you cannot unsee it.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Exactly. You can pretend, you can try to rebuild Egypt, you can hoard the plastic simulacra all you want, but the fundamental innocence of that singular timeline is gone forever.
Wow.
You are already in the desert. The only question is whether you are going to survive it with your eyes open or try to navigate it while squeezing your eyes shut.
Okay. Wow. So if we can't go back, we have to deal with what this realization actually does to our identity.
Yes. And this is where it gets tough.
Because once we accept that choices multiply, the concept of me starts to fall apart. The text refers to this phase as the birth of many selves. And I have to say, this part of the source material gave me absolute chills.
It is very unsettling.
It says that we are not the trunk of a tree. We are just one branch that believes it's the trunk.
It is a massive, devastating blow to the ego.
Yeah.
I mean, in Egypt, you think you are the original, continuous self. You are the protagonist of reality. But in the desert, as the choices multiply and reality fractures, you realize you are just an instance.
Just a single iteration.
Right. You are a continuation, not a center.
Meaning, every single version of me carries my memory right up to the point of divergence.
Yeah.
And every single one of those versions says, with total unshakable certainty, this is me, I am the real one.
Exactly. The text has this line, there is nothing that selects me as the self, only as a self.
That is haunting, because it implies that there is absolutely nothing cosmically special about the timeline we are in right now.
None at all.
We just happen to be the ones experiencing it. But the horror of this goes way beyond just our own internal identity. It gets infinitely worse when we apply this branching logic to other people.
Right, the social aspect.
The text calls this concept echoes of the other.
Because if you are just one branch of many possibilities, then it logically dictates that so is everyone else you meet.
So when I sit across a table and talk to a friend, I'm not getting the whole person.
Not according to this framework, no.
What am I getting then?
You are getting a partial fragment of them that just happens to be aligned with your specific timeline. You are receiving an echo.
I am really struggling to wrap my head around the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
Are you saying that because of the choices they made to end up in this room with me, they have to shed other versions of themselves?
Think of it like overlapping frequencies. It is a resonance shaped by the impossibility of total contact between branching selves.
Okay.
You meet, but only at the surface of your mutual branching. The parts of them that belong to different choices, different timelines, you have absolutely no access to that.
So I only know the version of them that exists in response to the version of me that exists right now.
Exactly. You are interacting with a highly specific, timeline-dependent sliver of a human being.
And this leads us directly into what has to be the most unsettling chapter of the entire Desert of Choices text. It's called the dummy hypothesis.
It is the ultimate paranoid thought experiment.
It really is. If we only ever meet fragments of people, if we only ever interact with these highly specific slivers, what actually guarantees that they have full consciousness?
That's the million-dollar question.
Oh.
If the person standing in front of you is just a manifestation shaped by your specific trajectory through this branching structure, are they a fully realized three-dimensional being?
Or are they just a placeholder?
A construct?
Yes, like a construct that maintains the coherence of this specific reality, but entirely lacks an inner world. Are they just rendering in your field of vision to keep the timeline intact?
What's fascinating here is how that connects so perfectly, so viscerally, to that tiny, brilliant detail from the Matrix Reloaded script.
Right, the Bane scene.
Exactly. In the movie, the character Bane has been assimilated by Agent Smith. He's walking around the real world, but his mind has been hijacked. And the script notes point out that for a millisecond, just a fraction of a second, Neo knew something was wrong. He faintly saw Smith behind Bane's eyes.
Oh man, that is so creepy.
That millisecond is the visual embodiment of the dummy hypothesis. It's the horrifying realization that the person standing right in front of you has a totally different, perhaps completely hollow or entirely compromised interior reality than the one you assumed.
You think you're talking to Bane, but you're talking to a program. You think you're talking to your neighbor, but you're talking to an echo. It's like the ultimate form of solipsism.
It really is. And if we look at how the text expands on this, it discusses what it calls the silence between worlds.
Right.
It uses the ancient biblical metaphor of the Israelites wandering the desert for 40 years, but it totally reframes it. Well, in the Desert of Choices, 40 years isn't a measurement of time passing on a clock. It is a measurement of endurance. It's a measurement of infinite divergence across parallel universes.
So time widens. It doesn't just move forward.
Exactly. And the most striking thing about these infinite widening worlds is the absolute silence. We can never hear the other versions of ourselves.
So we're totally cut off.
We can never reach across the divide to confirm the reality of the other branches. The isolation is total.
Let's pause on that image for a second, because I want to extrapolate this to modern human connection. Like, think about your closest friend for a second. Picture them.
Okay.
If we adopt this dummy hypothesis, if we start looking at people as just placeholders or echoes rendering in our specific timeline, we risk total existential isolation. We detach.
We stop caring because we doubt their fundamental reality.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if we just reject the hypothesis blindly, we're back in Egypt, clinging to naive assumptions about the singularity of the universe.
The text argues that empathy in the desert is no longer a given, it is a choice.
Because you can't prove they're real.
Right. You cannot mathematically or philosophically prove the inner world of another person. You can never verify their consciousness. Therefore, treating them as if they are fully real, as if their suffering matters, is a conscious leap of faith.
But wait, if I know I'm only interacting with an echo of my friend, shaped by the weird random choices that brought us to this specific timeline, doesn't that invalidate the depth of our relationship?
How do you mean?
Like, doesn't the dummy hypothesis just inevitably lead to total apathy? Why should I care if they aren't the whole person?
It absolutely can lead to apathy, and that is the defining danger of the desert. Many people get lost there. But the text suggests another, much more profound perspective.
Okay, I need some good news here.
The good news is the fact that you do not encounter all of your friend doesn't make the encounter false. It makes it hyper-specific. You are meeting as convergences, brief alignments within an infinite chaotic structure.
So the fragility is the point.
Yes. The specificity, the fact that this particular highly unlikely version of you is talking to this particular highly unlikely version of them against the backdrop of infinity can actually make the connection more meaningful.
Not less.
Right, not less, precisely because it is so fragile and so mathematically rare.
Wow. Okay, that is incredibly heavy. We've established the terrifying weight of infinite choices and the deep isolation of these branching selves. We know what it looks like to be in the desert.
We're out in the sands.
We are out in the sand. Now, we need to turn to philosophy to actually name this specific crushing feeling of dread. Like, why does the desert feel so unbelievably heavy on the human nervous system?
To answer that, we turn to Søren Kierkegaard and his 1844 work, The Concept of Anxiety.
Let's look at the context of this book. What blows my mind about Kierkegaard here is that he didn't even put his own name on this text.
No, he didn't.
He wrote it under a pseudonym, Vigilius Hofniensis, which translates to the Watchman of Copenhagen.
It is such a brilliant literary device. The watchman is the one who stands on the wall and sees the danger coming from the horizon.
And the danger he is watching for, the danger he is warning us about, is anxiety.
But we have to be very careful here because Kierkegaard defines anxiety in a highly specific way. It is not just being worried about a test or a job interview or a social interaction.
Right, it's not generalized anxiety disorder.
No. For Kierkegaard, anxiety is the sheer dizziness of freedom.
The dizziness of freedom. I love that phrase so much.
It's perfect.
The deep dive Wikipedia article on his book brings up his interpretation of the Adam and Eve story, which completely reframes the entire concept of original sin.
It really flips it on its head.
Kierkegaard argues that Eve's first sin wasn't sensuousness. It wasn't the physical act of desiring the apple.
No, the real catalyst, the thing that broke the world, was the knowledge of freedom.
Tell me more about that.
Think about the mechanics of the story. God issues a prohibition. Do not eat from this tree. According to Kierkegaard, that prohibition itself is what woke them up.
Because it presented an option.
Exactly. The prohibition created the possibility of choice. Before that moment, they didn't even know they could choose.
He has this line, consciousness presupposes itself, which is a bit of a brain twister.
Yeah, it's dense.
But if I understand it correctly, he's saying Eve had to become conscious of her own ability to choose before she could actually make the choice to sin.
Right.
Anxiety is the psychological state that precedes the choice. It's what he calls the qualitative leap.
Yes. If we map this onto our earlier concepts, anxiety is the psychological tool that drags us out of Egypt.
Okay.
It pulls us from what Jean-Paul Sartre would later call pre-reflective consciousness, which is the blissful ignorance of Egypt, where you just act on instinct, into reflective consciousness, which is the hyper-awareness of the desert, where you realize you are the author of your actions.
So anxiety isn't a glitch in the system. Anxiety is the alarm clock.
Precisely. It is the friction of waking up. And this connects directly back to what the Desert of Choices text calls the weight of all choices.
Yes, because the text argues that the weight of a choice isn't just the burden of its consequence. Like, if I choose to go to medical school, the weight isn't just the hard work of studying for a decade.
That's just logistics.
Right. The real existential weight is the burden of division.
Every conscious choice is a quiet divergence, a separation of selves.
The text says, nothing is eliminated, and yet something is always lost.
That's a brutal line.
It is. You are literally mourning the selves you will never become. Every time you make a decision, you are stepping away from a version of you that now exists without you, forever beyond your reach. You have to grieve the phantom limbs of the multiverse.
That mourning, that paralyzing awareness of the infinite branches, is the exact dizziness Kierkegaard is talking about.
Wow.
And it's fascinating to look at how translators struggled with this concept. The Wikipedia article highlights this beautifully. When Walter Lowry translated the book into English in 1944, he agonized over finding a word for the original Danish word angst.
Because anxiety in English just feels too clinical. It feels like a medical diagnosis.
Right, it doesn't capture the philosophy. Other translators tried dread, which captures the fear but completely misses the freedom aspect.
Interesting.
The Spanish translators use angustia, which implies a narrowness, like a choking feeling. The French used agony and angoisse, implying a profound inner struggle.
The fact that linguistic experts were fighting over words like agony and dread just shows how hard it is to articulate this specific existential terror.
It defies simple language.
It really does. It's not fear. Fear is simple. Fear is when there's a tiger in the room and your body says run. Anxiety is. Well, let's use an analogy.
Go for it.
Imagine you are hiking and you stand at the edge of a massive 1,000-foot cliff. You look down and your stomach drops. But that feeling isn't just the fear of falling. The real terror, the deep Kierkegaardian anxiety, is the sudden, horrifying realization that you have the freedom to jump.
Yes. The cliff isn't going to push you. The wind isn't going to blow you over. You might push you. Your own freedom is the danger.
That is the knowledge of freedom, the realization that you are in total control of the steering wheel and you could drive off the road at any second.
And that freedom is completely paralyzing.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because I'm looking at the Kierkegaard material, and I'm struggling to square two ideas here. There's a massive paradox.
Okay, let's hear it.
Kierkegaard says that anxiety about sin actually produces sin. The dizziness makes you fall. But he also writes, and I'm quoting here, learning to know anxiety is an adventure which every man has to affront if he would not go to perdition.
Right.
So is anxiety our greatest enemy in the desert because it paralyzes us and makes us fall? Or is it our only savior because it's the only thing that wakes us up?
It is fundamentally both, and that tension is the crux of the human existential dilemma.
How do you survive that tension?
Well, if you flee from anxiety, if you refuse the adventure, as Kierkegaard puts it, you sink back into the ignorance of Egypt. You lose your authentic self to the simulacra. You become a sleepwalker.
But if you face it,
you must bear the agony of total responsibility. Anxiety is the fire you have to walk through to become a fully self-conscious, individuated human being.
But human beings absolutely hate walking through fire. Our nervous systems are not built to sustain that level of agonizing freedom indefinitely.
We despise it. It is exhausting. Neurologically, philosophically, it just drains us completely.
Which brings us to a massive pivot in our sources. Faced with this overwhelming Kierkegaardian anxiety and the endless, indifferent horizon of the desert, human nature instinctively rebels. We look for an exit strategy.
We try to find a way to stop the dizziness.
And when we realize the desert has no exit, we build one out of illusions. We manufacture our own certainty.
The Desert of Choices calls this concept the golden calf of certainty. When the openness of the desert just becomes too much, we build idols.
It's a brilliant psychological reframing of the biblical story of Exodus.
Right. The Israelites are in the wilderness. They have left Egypt. They are free, but they are terrified of the unknown. The freedom is too dizzying, so what do?
They melt down their gold and build a calf. They create something solid, visible, and singular.
Exactly. And they didn't build it because they genuinely believed a golden statue was the creator of the universe. They built it because it was certain. It was right there. They could touch it.
When we are overwhelmed by the multiplicity of choices in our own lives, we desperately want to choose a single version of reality and declare it absolute.
We adopt dogmas, rigid political ideologies, fundamentalist belief systems, or even just stubbornly rigid personal narratives about who we are.
And we do this not because these systems are universally, objectively true, but because they act as a neurological anchor. They relieve the anxiety of freedom.
It's basically a return to Egypt, but we've built the pyramids ourselves this time.
We lock ourselves inside our own ideologies just to stop the spinning.
We demand a final arrival. We demand a destination. But the desert doesn't respond to our demands.
This connects so profoundly to the verse from Ecclesiastes in our source stack. Chapter 7, verse 14. In the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider this. God has made one of these along with the other, so that a man cannot discover anything that will come after him.
That verse is a breathtakingly stark statement on the limits of human knowledge. It is explicitly stating that reality is fundamentally unpredictable by design.
Prosperity and adversity are woven together in a way that defies our attempts to figure out the pattern.
You literally cannot discover what comes next. And that links perfectly to what the desert text calls the indifference of reality.
Yes, the text is brutally clear on this point. The universe does not privilege any choice. It does not validate any path.
If you turn left, the universe doesn't applaud your bravery. If you turn right, the universe doesn't weep for your mistake.
It just allows the consequence to unfold. The multiverse doesn't care which branch you are on.
This shows up in the Matrix Reloaded script again.
Oh, bro.
Neo is asking the Oracle about the first one. He wants to know why the war didn't end when the last one made it to the source. He's looking for the pattern.
He's looking for the guarantee that if he does X, Y will inevitably happen.
And the Oracle essentially tells him that was his path. Your path is different, and it's harder.
Neo wants the golden calf. He wants the final mathematical answer that closes the loop and ends the anxiety.
But the Oracle is telling him he's in the desert. And in the desert, the horizon never changes.
I want to try and visualize this illusion of direction. Imagine you are walking on endless sand dunes. Every step you take requires massive effort. Your legs are burning, you are sweating, it feels like you are making progress.
You're putting in the work.
But you look up, and the horizon is exactly as far away as it was 3 hours ago. It's like being on a treadmill in a void. You are expending energy, you are moving, but the fundamental structure around you isn't responding to your movement. You aren't getting closer to the edge of the desert.
And because that fundamental indifference is unbearable, because it feels like our effort is wasted, we rebel. We try to impose structure where there is none. We demand that our choices guarantee a specific positive outcome.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let me play devil's advocate here.
All right.
If the universe is entirely indifferent, as the text claims, and if Ecclesiastes is right, that we can't ever know what's coming after us, why shouldn't we build a golden calf?
Because it's a lie.
I mean, isn't a comfortable constructed meaning, even if it's a bit rigid, even if it's a bit dogmatic, better than what the text warns about, the total collapse of meaning? Why not just pick an ideology and cling to it so we can sleep at night?
It's the ultimate temptation, and it's why humanity has done exactly that for thousands of years. But the text warns that the golden calf is dangerous precisely because it requires you to actively lie to yourself.
You have to pretend you didn't see the truth.
Exactly. It requires you to deny the complexity of the reality you've already seen. If you build a golden calf, you are actively shutting down your reflective consciousness.
You are choosing willful ignorance over truth, just to soothe your anxiety.
And the text suggests that while the collapse of meaning is terrifying, it is the necessary, unavoidable final stage before you can find something authentic.
You have to lose everything to find what actually matters. You have to let the fake scaffolding fall away.
You have to let the false structures collapse so you can stand on solid ground, even if that ground is just sand.
Which brings us to the climax of this entire conceptual journey. Let's say you do it. You refuse the fake certainty of the golden calf.
Okay.
You refuse to adopt a rigid ideology just to feel safe. But you also fully accept the indifferent, infinite branching reality of the desert. You accept that your choices multiply into infinity.
You've accepted the terms.
Right. How do you and I actually wake up and live our lives tomorrow morning? How do you buy groceries or choose a career or commit to a marriage in the multiverse?
You survive by relying on mana.
Mana and meaning. I love this part of the text. So going back to the biblical story, manna is this mysterious sustenance that literally falls from the sky to feed the people while they are wandering in the desert.
But there are very specific rules to how it works.
The rules are everything.
It appears, it is experienced, and then it vanishes. You cannot hoard it.
You can't put it in a Tupperware for later.
No, you cannot gather extra on Monday and store it in a vault to guarantee you won't starve on Thursday. You have to go out and gather it fresh every single day.
And the text uses this as a metaphor for meaning in the desert. Meaning is local. It is not absolute.
This is the massive breakthrough of the text. We spend our lives looking for an overarching, absolute meaning. We want a grand narrative that spans our entire existence and guarantees our ultimate destination. We want the golden calf.
Right.
But the desert says that absolute guaranteed meaning doesn't exist. Instead, meaning is local. It's the conversation you have with a friend over coffee. It's the deep satisfaction of a hard job done well. It's a momentary flash of clarity.
That local meaning feeds your soul for that day, and then it dissipates, and you have to wake up and find it again tomorrow.
It sustains without explaining. It doesn't tell you the meaning of the universe. It just gives you enough meaning to get through Tuesday.
It nourishes you without offering a permanent guarantee. And this ties into what the text calls judgment in the desert. Because if you can't control all the branching realities, if you can't control the multiverse, what are you actually responsible for?
You are absolutely undeniably responsible for the specific self you are becoming on this specific path.
The text says, you measure yourself, not against all possible selves, but against the one you are becoming.
It's a powerful distinction.
Just because every possible version of you is theoretically out there making every possible choice doesn't let you off the hook. You are the one experiencing this timeline. You have to live in this body.
This is exactly what Kierkegaard meant by earnestness and disposition. The Wikipedia article on his work notes how Kierkegaard drew on Rosenkranz's psychology.
Okay, lay it on me.
He defined disposition as the unity of feeling and self-consciousness. But earnestness is higher. Earnestness is the acquired originality of disposition, affirmed in the responsibility of freedom.
Okay, I'm going to need you to ground that. Translate that from the listener who hasn't read 19th century Danish psychology recently. What does acquired originality of disposition look like on a Tuesday morning commute?
Let's break it down. When you are operating without earnestness, you are just passively feeling your way through life.
Just going through the motions.
Yeah, you wake up, you make coffee because it's a habit, you go to work because you have to, you react to your partner based on whatever mood you happen to be in. You are a passenger.
Yeah.
Earnestness means you actively take responsibility for the freedom you have. You unify your feelings and your consciousness into a concrete, intentional personality.
So it's about agency.
It's about profound agency. It means that when you wake up on that Tuesday, you know that there are infinite other realities where you didn't wake up next to this partner or you didn't take this job.
Right.
You know, the universe doesn't objectively care if you're a good person today or a terrible one. But you look at your partner, you look at your work, and you choose it. You say, I know this isn't cosmically guaranteed, but I am going to act with integrity in this specific moment anyway.
You stand behind your actions, fully aware of the void that surrounds them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this echoes the Oracle in The Matrix Reloaded again. Neo is so perplexed when she says, you didn't come here to make a choice. You came here to understand why you made it.
Because the Oracle is expressing the ultimate truth of the desert. In a multiverse, the mechanical act of selecting option A or option B has already happened somewhere. The path exists.
The meaning isn't in the raw calculation of the choice. The meaning is in your understanding of the choice. It is your earnestness in walking the path.
You don't choose an action to reach a guaranteed final destination. You choose an action to shape your present orientation. You are enacting the desert.
That is profound liberation. The text calls it choosing without purpose.
Which on the surface sounds incredibly nihilistic.
It does sound like it.
But it's actually the exact opposite of nihilism. When you stop demanding that your choices guarantee a specific future outcome, which Ecclesiastes literally just told us we can't control anyway, you are finally free.
You are free to choose based on your immediate values, your integrity, your disposition. You choose to be kind today because you value kindness, not because you think being kind today guarantees you a reward in 10 years.
You choose because of who you are right now, not because of what you hope to control tomorrow.
It's what the text calls faith without certainty, believing in meaning without requiring mathematical proof of its uniqueness.
Choosing to act as if things matter, even when the structural reality of the universe is completely indifferent.
It is the only way to survive the desert without losing your humanity.
But I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone trying to apply this, and I have to ask, if I have faith without certainty, am I just tricking myself into caring?
How?
Like, I know the universe is indifferent, I know every choice branches, but I'm just going to pretend it matters.
Oh.
How is relying on manna any different than just going back to Egypt and clinging to a comfortable illusion?
The difference is entirely about consciousness. Egypt is a state of willful ignorance. In Egypt, you believe your path is the only truth, the only reality. You are asleep to the complexity of the universe.
Okay, and manna.
Manna, on the other hand, requires a state of hyper-awareness. You fully accept that your path is just one of infinite branching realities. You know the universe is indifferent, but you take responsibility for your specific path anyway.
So you aren't hiding from it?
No, you don't trick yourself. You actively commit yourself to local meaning, fully awake to the infinite void that surrounds it. That is not an illusion. That is the highest form of existential bravery.
Yeah, wow. Let's take a breath and recap this journey, because we have covered a staggering amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started asleep. We started in the comfortable illusion of Egypt, surrounded by the plastic simulacra of a simple linear life where our choices felt safe and manageable.
Then the crack happened.
We realized choices don't eliminate alternatives, they multiply them. We stepped into the desert of infinite branching choices. We watched our identities fracture into many selves, realizing we are just one branch of a massive tree.
We stared down the terrifying dummy hypothesis, wondering if the people around us are fully real or just echoes shaped by our specific timeline.
We felt the dizziness of freedom, that deep Kierkegaardian anxiety that comes with realizing we have total, unshielded responsibility for our actions.
We felt the urge to rebel against that anxiety, the temptation to build the golden calf of false certainty just to escape the indifferent horizon that never ever gets closer.
But we refused the idol.
We refuse the idol.
We faced the collapse of overarching, guaranteed meaning, and we learned how to survive on the daily manna. Local meaning, earnestness, choosing without demanding a guaranteed outcome, having faith without requiring certainty.
I want to remind everyone listening right now, you're currently walking in the desert. Today. Right now.
Yep.
Every single choice you make after you turn off this deep dive will branch reality. The universe may be completely indifferent to which branch you take.
It won't applaud and it won't weep.
But you are the one who must live with the self you are becoming. The path is yours and yours alone, even if it is one among infinite others.
And that is a heavy, incredibly beautiful responsibility. As we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to chew on, something we didn't explicitly answer today, but something that the desert demands you consider.
I'd love to hear it.
If every possible version of you exists across infinite timelines, shaped by every conceivable choice, every trauma, every victory, every catastrophic mistake, is there a core essence, a fundamental, unchangeable you-ness that remains entirely identical in every single one of those universes? Or are you, at your very center, just a collection of the choices you happen to remember? Think about that the next time you reach a fork in the hallway.